The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, it's good to hear the sensible contributions that have been made in this debate about amendments to the International Finance Agreements Amendment Bill, because some of the biggest challenges that New Zealand currently faces is how we protect our citizens and our country in incredibly challenging financial times. And so often in the debates in this Parliament, there are all sorts of sideshows going on where actually that is the core challenge for New Zealand. As other members have noted, the bill puts into place a number of agreements that were made in 2008 and 2010 by the governors of the International Monetary Fund, and allows the New Zealand Parliament to effectively ratify those and modernise those IMF structures. Some of the major changes is the recognition that economies like of China, like Korea, have become so much bigger global players, and that they need to step up both in the governance and in the financial contributions to international institutions like the IMF to match their contribution globally in 2012, rather than when the IMF structures were put together in the late 50s and early 1960s. The part that's a bit missing, though, from the debate and the contradiction is that I hear opposition members recognising the need for an IMF, recognising the challenges that there are globally, recognising the changes that have occurred globally around the growth of Korea and China, and yet in so many of the policy positions that they adopt, take an introverted anti-global trade perspective that actually contradicts the very reality that goes with this bill. Now, I hear this interjection that somehow that is being pro-New Zealand. Members on this side of the House would say that for a small trading nation, being pro-trade is being pro-New Zealand, and that's where we find some of the very insular, almost North Korean perspective that we get from a party like New Zealand First is actually quite a risk to jobs and prosperity to New Zealand. I also find it interesting that in debating this IMF bill, there's recognition that countries have got themselves in very serious financial pickle by spending money they don't have. And in fact, the IMF and the provisions that we are putting forward in the Parliament is actually to try and protect the world economy from some of those reckless policies, and that's proper for us to provide those protections. The contradiction, though, is that every single week that's occurred this year, we've seen new spending commitments coming from parties opposite at a time when New Zealand is running substantive deficits. And I hear the New Zealand First members interjecting, and I'd simply say to them, well, like over the last recess where they promised superannuitants a 10% reduction on their power bills, a policy that over a period of 5 years would cost $450 million, and I say is just financially reckless when we're debating a bill of this sort, and would actually just add to the financial instability, and equally so in the contributions I've heard from Labor, where every single debate that comes up they want to spend more, they are being financially reckless, and actually reinforces the need for New Zealand to be part of the stabilising mechanisms that are provided by the International Monetary Fund. I simply hope that New Zealand adopts responsible fiscal policies of the sort that's promoted by this key government, so we don't have to call on the resources of the IMF one day to bail us out from the sorts of policies that I see being promoted by members opposite. I think this debate is a healthy debate and reminds New Zealand of the need for sound international trading mechanisms and institutions, and for the importance of New Zealand taking a rational, conservative and responsible fiscal policy, because that is the very best hope of being able to secure the bright future that this government has campaigned and continues to work towards with legislation such as this, Mr Speaker.
The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Speaker, in the last sentence,